Good morning, Carl.
Confirmation.
Thank you very much for coming on to
Morning,
Polybody
Oliver. How are you?
Review. I'm very well, thank you. And
Pleasure.
yourself?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Pleasure. Okay, to start, it's a question I like to ask all our herbal or plant people. Is when did you first start on the plant path? Was it something that was obvious in your childhood?
No,
Okay,
no,
so what
not
what
at all.
brought what brought you to the path then?
I think it was a slow introduction, really.
Mm-hmm.
Would have been started some anthropology at university. Then I got involved in a bit of tribalism, but then music took me off
Mm-hmm.
course for quite a while. I think the actual start date was about 21 years ago, cycling home from DJing one night.
Oh
In fact,
yes.
I put an actual date on that now because I was writing something the other day and I thought, yeah, there is actually a quite a positive timeline here where I can put to a start point. And indeed, I was cycling home, I was thinking about spending time in Indonesia with the tribes, and this voice was literally shouting into my head, "What are you doing? What am I doing?" So I got off the bike. It's about 3 o'clock in the morning. I just cycled back from Brighton DJing, and yeah, I realised that I shouldn't really be doing what I was doing, and that was promoting these club nights, people drinking, getting off their heads. That
Right.
really wasn't the path that I was on. Although I was enjoying music, we were being fairly successful, but yeah, I always knew there was something that wasn't quite hitting my soul, as it were, right,
Right.
and I was
Okay.
following a path that was forced upon me. And yeah, and then this question just came into my head as I stopped the bike and that morning, and it said, "Why are we dying of cancer?" And I
Right.
think that's the thing that grabbed me. And then it said, "You've got a quest. You now got a mission to see why we're getting these diseases of civilization, non-civilized people, like the tribal people I had so much fun time with in Indonesia."
And had that been something you'd been pondering at all beforehand, or in indirect
No,
ways, or
no. I would say I was blind. I, I was focused on music. I was spending all my time in the studio writing music, managing the artists on the label, etc. And yeah, but that was definitely where my soul lay. And yeah, and then since 21 years now after, I've completed the two books, and I'm not being too arrogant, but I think I've probably answered that question: why we get the disease of civilization, and more importantly, instead of being a negative polemic on why we're getting ill, because we all know why we're getting ill really in our hearts, was how we can have a solution. So I think the
absolutely.
new book that you've gracefully published is the solution to why we're getting the disease of civilization. And then it also has the add-on that it shows us how we can have a sustainable culture and
Yes, indeed.
civilization as well.
So after you had this revelation, how did you go about sort of answering the questions and the life changes that had been announced to you?
Um, I then I found a book, I think, when I believe it was called Stone Age Diet.
Oh yes.
And I read the book and it was awful. Is the main negative thing, and there's the caveman at a very different diet during the Stone Age, and they didn't get the disease of civilization, most importantly as well, which isn't just food. I'd love to add that it's all the other contaminants in our modern world as well, obviously
Absolutely.
causing it. But food is the one thing that we have a direct control over,
Yes.
and what we put in our body. We can go to the shop with a little bit of education and know what we're buying. Yeah, so I read the book and thought, this is incredible. This message in this book is really important. Everyone should read this, and the book was written so badly. The small diagrams are so awful in it. I thought, wow. And I think that was probably the thing that I thought, what could do better than that? And I think I took on the moniker of the caveman almost instantly.
Mm-hmm.
And thereafter, what happened then? I was looking, yeah, I was just really researching about why are we getting ill. I was trying to get all the literature on the tribes I could find. And basically, there's nothing. There was very little that was on the health of the tribal people. There's
Right.
obviously some bits, but nothing in depth. There's certainly nothing I could go to a book and say, this is scientific evidence that we've got this because of this or whatever. And so I just got involved in food, and then the mineralization got into soil quite heavily as well.
Right.
And then I started doing the culinary caveman powders. And I think that's when I really started to click into gear, understanding that I had a mission that I could remineralize the human organism, basically,
And
because
and
that's what
and
we are. We're just becoming progressively more demineralized.
and did you basically teach yourself all this about the soils and how to make the powders and stuff?
I'm completely autodidactic, I'm afraid. Yeah, I mean,
No,
I did
no,
go
very
to
good,
university, and
impressive. Hmm.
yeah, and I didn't respect a lot of what I was taught at university. Actually, to be frank, I'd hate to admit it sometimes, but I was the first student to not accept my degree from the Institute of Archaeology. because
Really?
I just, yeah, it didn't resonate with the truth. The things they were telling me, it was a lie. I knew it was a lie. It's fabricated. It was from their own egos and the books they were telling me to read. And I have to say, since not graduating in 1990, every single thing I had problems with has been disproved.
Yeah, as a fellow archaeological graduate, so I do have, I am, yeah, I have quite a lot of understanding of where you're coming from on that. Do you live the life then that you are outlining in your books? How much have you been able to realize it yourself, sort of thing, in your life?
Yeah, I think 75%,
Yep.
25%. I'm a contradictory culinary caveman in some respects. I love a cheese and onion crisp, and I also like an ice cream occasionally.
Right.
So
Yeah.
also, yeah. So in the Seven Deadly Whites, it is a torture writing about the Seven Deadly Whites and the food chain because
Yeah.
now I know all that I shouldn't be eating. So every time I eat something bad, there is a mental kind of issue there as well. So yeah, I think yeah, I'm certainly healthier than I was, but I've always been healthy. I've always
Carl,
been
just
balanced.
go through the seven deadly whites for the viewers who might not be so familiar with it. Obviously, we want them to buy your book, but it'd be give them a taster.
So Seven Deadly Whites is well, why are we getting the disease of civilization through the processed food chain? So the
Hmm.
processed food chain turns everything into a deadly white, whereas it starts as a nice, colourful, nutritious, ingredient to lots of food. Even sugar, if you had to take sugar cane as a raw thing, you'd be getting certain minerals, etc. They're good for you.
Right.
So if you're not getting that in white sugar, clearly not. It's just a detrimental input, and it's the same with salt as well. If you have lovely, sea salt, Morgan sea salt, etc. These things that are unprocessed, you're getting a whole range of minerals, etc. If you're doing table salt, you're having a poison, and it's the same for the wheat, and it's the same for the rice. And then you can associate that with the increase in diabetes everywhere because all we're really eating is sugary, starchy foods.
So
And diabetes is
it's very
defined as an
much
imbalance in
this like
sugar levels.
so wholemeal wheat would be all right, brown rice would be all right. It's when they're just sort of made white sort of thing and industrialized.
Yeah, predominantly. There are some people that have problems digesting the
Oh, of
flat
course, yes.
taste and
That
things like
aside, that
that in
aside, yeah.
rice. Yeah, there's always individuals, but no, absolutely, yeah. And you can see the rise in diabetes among the South American population and the Indians and the Chinese through their preponderance now they're eating white rice. Whereas
Right.
in the 1960s, there wasn't white rice. It was mainly exported for the European market. And then they wanted to have the European market thinking, oh, this export stuff is better because, the people in Europe are having it and we're selling it at a premium. So now they've
Mhm.
switched around and now we're buying their brown rice as a premium and all the goodness comes out of rice, for instance, all the vitamins goes into the supplement industry and goes into the heart drugs, for instance. So they're selling us the rice twice and they're making more money on the bits that they've supplemented and they've taken out. So they know damn well the food chain that they're giving us a denatured product. So they sell us, thankfully, the other side of the stuff they've taken out. So I wanted just to return to eating the whole product basically to
Absolutely.
begin with. So
Absolutely.
that is what
And
the premise is
what's
seven
your
deadly whites. And the last lie, sorry, it was lies. We lie to ourselves with the little white lies. Oh, it won't do me any harm, etc. Are you eating it all the time? You think it's good for us? We have that ego involved as well. But more pertinently, the chapter looked at the industrial espionage almost because they do lie to us. They knowingly lie to us because an industrial white lie would be a lie that is protecting their greater interests. And obviously, their greater interest isn't harming somebody individually; it's protecting their profits.
with your latest book, Seven Plants to Save the World, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Um, what were you trying to achieve with that? It's like when one creates a book, assuming it comes from the heart, what urged you to write that book about like, I want to get this out here because,
The first book was part one. It said part one on it as well.
yeah,
So there was going to be a part two. I did have a contract with the publisher to do a survival guide for the 21st century. So that kind of started me again thinking what I could do, how I could incorporate the food, etc. into it. And I realized that I wasn't really a polymath. I couldn't talk about the political system. I couldn't talk about the economic system because my expertise was more in herbalism, food, and nutrition at the time. And I didn't really want to pretend that I knew all these other things.
yeah,
So I'd have to involve other people to do some commentary for me, interviews, etc. And then as time went, suddenly plants were literally introducing themselves to me. And then I was researching the plants that are all around us. And I'm sitting there and I thought, well, hold on, this is the book. This isn't a survival guide. The book is going to be Seven Plants to Save the World because I'd suddenly amassed so much information from just nettles, for instance. And I thought, wow, they really are a place in our history and a place in our present and future as well. And what they provide really blew my head off. And then I looked, then other plants presented themselves to me. I'd already done nettles and dandelion in my green guide goodness for the culinary caveman. So I was already quite involved in those two. They were already one of the main ingredients. So when I looked at more science, it became evident that these were the plants. This is the thing we're missing from our diet. And then by introducing these plants, I could introduce a kind of a historical context to it all as well, in the time when we did eat all these plants, when these plants were in fact a part of herbal law, and they were the go-to drugs, as it were, for many illnesses, if not all illnesses. So
Yes.
yeah, and that's what came on. So they literally, the plants chose me. I researched them. It blew my head off, and the book certainly didn't write itself, but it kind of did in a weird way. I know a lot of herbalists say that, and I love
Yes,
reading that
they
when they
do.
say the plants choose you. I can't decide. I'm egotistical to a certain extent. I want to do things, but there's the right thing to do, and I believe this was the right thing to do indeed. Yeah. So yeah, and I loved it. I mean, I'm so proud of it. It's solutional. It's informative. I haven't read another book on herbs where you've got 60 pages on nettles.
No,
Usually they're
indeed, it's
3 pages.
great. And
Yeah, you get 3 pages on nettles. They're all repeating each other as if they literally are copying each other. And there's not a lot new to learn, but there is so much out there. There really is. So, yeah, so I compiled a lot of information about these 7 plants. And in doing so, I realized there was a societal change that these plants can undermine as well, or underpinge, sorry, not undermine.
so,
I've got terrible use of
just
English.
to go into a bit more, I mean, one of the well, it's not to me controversial, but it'll be controversial to some people. Is that you included cannabis in one of those as one of your plants? Maybe for the listeners, you go into a bit more detail of how you see it as one of the key plant civilizational change plants.
Yeah, absolutely. I realized it was controversial, and most of the writing process, it was a hemp chapter. I really didn't want to have to go into the cannabis side because sadly it has got a taboo around it, etc. So yeah, I tread carefully to begin with, and then I literally fell into lots of holes because there's lots of fashion flags at the moment with CBD, and I
Yeah.
was reading a lot of nonsense about it being anti-carcinogen, and I was thinking, but the science I'm reading doesn't say this. So yeah, so it was a delicate process, but I wanted to say there was hemp. Hemp is a one thing that is a marvelous plant for industry, but CBD comes from hemp as well. So yeah, but there is also obviously a role for cannabis in certain illnesses. If you've got cancer and you can't eat, you can't sleep, incredibly sick, etc. But yeah, each plant of the 7 has a USP, a unique selling point, and the USP for cannabis was absolutely the seed oil. The seed oil with our health was it's an anti-inflammatory, really, and I
Right.
think that was the thing I wanted to promote the most. There are other religious things, the historical aspects to smoking cannabis. I would argue the Sumerians, in ancient Babylonian, the tree of life was almost certainly depicting a cannabis plant with the buds coming out of it, etc. So it has a role in our history as well, and it's been literally censored. I mean, what I found incredible, even where you lived, all the fields around you have been covered in hemp plants in the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, literally covered from Saltdean to Portsmouth, and they grew the
Really,
best. And you wouldn't know it now. You walk across these fields, there's no indication, and there's nothing in the books. It literally has been written out of the books. You find the odd book where it mentions it, and you think, wow, yeah, it really was the #1 crop in Sussex and Hampshire,
and that would
Hempshire.
have been used for sort of rope making and things like that sort of thing.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, this is what blew me away when I was doing the hemp chapter was how much rope was being used for ships. So some of those big ships that fought the Armada, 100 tons of cannabis was on each one. The sails, the ropes, and the clothing, all
Right.
waterproof. You need the ropes because it ties off in the water and wet; it doesn't slip, etc. So 80, imagine that 80 to 100 tons on one boat of hemp. It's got to come from somewhere. And we're growing
Absolutely.
it all locally because we were getting some from the Russians. We weren't very happy with the Russians politically, etc. So we thought we've got to do our own, hemp security because it was indeed the security of the nation that we could protect ourselves through the navy. And every other boat would have had hemp. And every 5 to 10 years, you need to change all that rope. So
Right.
yeah, that was the most
And
impressive fact I think I
presumably
found from the whole thing that we've been missing. Sorry.
it's quite a tough plant that grows, so it's quite happy growing up on the hills in the sort of winds and stuff as well. So, So that's why
It
that was
loves a little bit of wind. Yeah, it makes it stronger in the roots, etc. And then you get bigger roots, and it's even more medicinal as well. So, yeah, and the thing about all of the seven plants is they're multifaceted as well. So obviously we're getting a lot of things from hemp, and it's very similar to nettle. I think they're almost not sisters in a botanical way, but they're certainly there's a relation there. You know,
do have that,
just from
yeah,
the way
that
they grow as well.
springiness and that toughness about them, don't they?
That's right. Yeah, they're very tenacious, and their uses are similar as well. They make exemplary, cordage and textiles, which is another thing we don't realize today. The softest underwear was made from nettles in the 17th century from Britain, and we sold those soft underwear the whole of Europe. I'm just saying, within all the herbal literature and everything, there doesn't seem to be a lot of information from 17th, 18th, 19th centuries, and then once we come to the modern era, where there are Matthew Wood, etc., and some other books have come out, and but we certainly, I don't, I don't quite know why, but I do think conspiratorially there has been uh, an effort by the pharmaceutical industry to make all the information and knowledge about herbalism not quite real, as it were. And I
Yeah,
can see that
and
happening even today now.
there's
If you want to, for
certainly
instance,
a
sorry.
downplaying of like herbal, especially stuff that like the things about this isn't in your book, but things like St. John's wort that which is one of its uses is obviously for depression. And now it's one, but strangely, it's one of the plant. It's a very harmless plant, but it's been strung around with "don't do this, don't do that" by the medical industry. A lot of it with very, very little evidence. But it's
Mm,
odd that that one's been singled out when antidepressants are such a huge business and don't work very well. So,
mm. Well,
uh,
it's. I think you hit it on the nail. Obviously, there, yeah, because it's all economics.
yeah, yeah, and
It's all down to money, and herbalism is a threat to a massive industry. And yeah, again, this played out when I was in Montenegro. I was giving a conference out there, and I was talking to some people, and they go, "Oh, we can't really talk about nettles anymore." And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "Well, no, because they're making it illegal, and it isn't." I looked into it; it's a European thing. If Montenegro, Serbia, Bosnia, etc., wanted to join Europe, they had to forgo their herbal law. I can't
really,
remember the
well,
number of the mandate in the European law. So obviously, the pharmaceutical industry has lobbied the
yeah,
European
yeah, for
government,
sure.
saying that we can't have people joining, because Europe essentially is just a market. It's just joining our capitalist society. I know it sounds a bit naive, maybe saying that, but that's what it is, and that's Putin's
Well,
problem.
it doesn't ever
He just
surprise you
wants
that
part of
much.
our market.
Because it was started as that. I mean, it was started as as a free trade zone, capitalist free trade zone. So that's kind of in its DNA. So it'd be odd if it wasn't anything else. And it was also interestingly started to facilitate cartels rather than sort of individual traders. So it's still doing that as well.
Yeah. Oh, they're gangsters. It's run. The drug business is run exactly the same as the pharmaceutical industry, same as the petroleum industry, the same
Yep,
as FIFA. It really is.
I
And
know.
yeah, it's depressing. It's thoroughly depressing being in this world sometimes.
Yeah, I
And the more
know.
you know, the more depressing it is. Ignorance is bliss. But that wasn't my role, and obviously I wanted to
No,
learn an awful
exactly,
lot.
exactly. There's plenty of naysayers. We need some people to say how we can get out of this rut sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I think your
And
book.
it's incredibly simple. We've got everything around us, and we've got all the inventions and things. And I think people just need a little bit more confidence and a little bit of empowerment, which is, I think, what the plants bring us, as you're saying. I mean, yeah, I did some St. John's wort tinctures just the other day, actually, sorry, last year. And yeah, my friends are loving it, because they've all got depression problems, etc., because we're in our mid-50s. And yeah, they just do 20 drops a day, and they're saying, wow, that seems to work better than the antidepressants I was on.
Surprise,
Yeah,
surprise.
so
Yeah.
I wonder why. So yeah, Mother Nature's there. She's always been there, and I believe that this is what we need to sort of focus on now, is this unifying nature that she does indeed have to bring us together. Because everything else in our society is divisive,
Yes.
and that is indeed an element of social engineering, isn't it? To drive those wedges in, whether it's the dualism of male, female, black, white, immigrants and migrants, you name it. It's always this division.
It's a
So
classic divide and rule. It's
yeah, that's in
oldest history,
plain
isn't it?
sight. Indeed, it is. Yeah. So.
Yeah, sad times. So
Mm.
back to the plants. I have a technical question
Yeah,
for you. You mentioned
good.
earlier hemp seed oil as
Yeah.
being one wonderful, wonderful byproduct of hemp. Is that something one can make at home, or does, assuming one could get hemp plants to grow, or do you need sort of industrial press for it?
No, no, you can certainly cold press any of these oils at home, depending on
Hmm.
how much you want, etc. But yeah, absolutely not a problem at all. All oils you're consuming from vegetable sources and seeds should be cold pressed. So we
Okay.
shouldn't be eating sunflower oils, corn oils. And in the 1930s, all these oils are flagged when they're invented and wanting to be pushed into the food chain as carcinogens. No food agency wanted sunflower oil. Canola should never have joined the food chain.
No.
So no, hemp seed oil, yeah, you can buy them yourself, press the seeds yourself at home, but frankly, it's probably easier to
No, I'm
go
just
to a
interested from a
reputable herb
self-sufficiency
supply.
viewpoint because I know you can get some very good hemp seed oils, and I've bought them myself. I'm just always interested in this. And
For
what
sure.
dosage would you
You
recommend of
can't
taking?
grow the plant. Yeah,
What dosage of hemp seed oil?
10
Like,
mil a day. All you need
10,
is just to take a tablespoon.
oh really? Just a tablespoon a day, and that's your
Oh,
anti-inflammatory sort of thing.
I, absolutely. Unless, yeah, I mean, unless your diet is full of sugars and inflammatory indicators because
Yeah.
you're having too much sugar and salts and other stuff in the diet, then no, 10 mil won't be the panacea for everybody. But yeah, 10 mil with a fairly good diet would certainly make a difference. Yeah. And it would certainly help
Excellent.
any inflammation. And all diseases usually start from an inflammatory start.
Oh God,
So
yes, yeah,
yeah,
and that I have personal experience of, which so yeah. And
indeed.
it's fascinating the levels of inflammation in. I mean, we won't probably best not to mention the whole sort of COVID debacle and its offshoots in the role of inflammation, but there's now literally an epidemic of it. I mean, I practice as a herbalist and in part time, and the increase in inflammatory conditions I've been seeing in the past few years is just extraordinary.
Yep.
And then
Depressingly
obviously, as
extraordinary,
an
aren't they?
alternative health practitioner, I'm sure you've found this as well. This is something the mainstream medicine, the NHS in the UK, finds very difficult to deal with inflammation because they have no tools to deal with it, as a lot of their drugs actually make it worse.
Because it's a disease of civilization.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
believe as well. So you have to actually understand the fact that it is my lifestyle that probably is the main risk factor. And
Yes.
again, that's very difficult to people to accept and to understand as well why we've been led down this false path of civilization. Because we
Yeah.
think that isn't the thing. So yeah, once you look at your lifestyle and you look at your diet, it becomes fairly obvious why you've got an inflammatory lifestyle that's causing these diseases. Not for everybody, but it will be. Whether you're living underneath electric pylons, eating bad food, there's so many things in today's lifestyle. But eating a good diet with full mineralization has to be the
Yes.
start.
Definitely. Definitely.
Mm.
And if you had to choose one of your seven plants, I mean, I know this is an impossible question, Carl, but which is your favorite? Would it be nettle or dandelion, or which of the ones do you really
It's like I said, a
resonate with?
favorite film or favorite track. But yeah, I think the one I've got an affinity with the most, as it were, is nettles.
Right.
I think there's no question about it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love all the plants. I love all plants, not just the seven,
Yeah, of
obviously. But
course, yes.
yeah, I think it was because nettles suddenly opened up this doorway into the past, into herbalism, and the doorway into the truth. In the fact that it really has so much for a plant that finds us. We don't have to look for it. It lives around our excrement. It will
Right. It
always
just
want to
grows.
invite
Yeah.
us.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's right.
So
Yeah.
it is a human plant. So this is why I came up with this term. So I suddenly realized, hold on, we've evolved on these plants. These plants go deep. We're not talking about just eating them as a soup in Victorian times. We're talking about times when mammalians began. And we
Right.
started eating these foods. And what I realized was all the human plants, the seven plants in the book, I called them human plants. It's not, I made it up, but they're called human plants because we've evolved on them. And I wanted to then check that, hold on then, so can I prove that these plants, where humans have evolved globally, these plants are also, obviously evident, and they are very much evident in the places where all humans have evolved. So the only place they're missing sometimes is North America. North America we haven't evolved in. So it
Right.
didn't have any problem there at all. So Africa is a homeland for so many nettles, New Zealand's, Australia, Asia, obviously all through Southeast Asia, China,
And
and
so,
over all of these plants,
and so,
dandelions, yarrow, all of them.
yeah, I've got everywhere.
So
Yeah.
we've evolved on these plants. Yeah, they've been intimate relationship with us through the whole of our evolution, and suddenly we've cut off eating all these
But I
plants,
often
but
wonder.
not just the plants, it's also nutrients. So
I often wonder, Carl, there's a line in herbalism that if you've got inflammation, don't eat nightshades. And I often wondered, is that
yeah,
because practically all of them aren't native to to the Western Europe and Asia? They're all South American or American foods, and that obviously the majority of people from Europe, Asia didn't evolve on them. Might that be why that we have more?
it has to be a correlation because it'd be like lactose as well, wouldn't it? The Europeans had milk ingestion much earlier
Right,
than the Chinese, and the Chinese are only just now trying to deal with it, and milk has entered their diet to such an extent where they almost were forced to tolerate it to such an extent
right,
for so long, and they become used to the intolerance. You say it's to do with eating the very foods we're eating that's causing the inflammation. So we're eating, we've got gluten intolerance where we didn't have gluten intolerance in the past. So part of it's down to the pesticides are attaching themselves to the proteins within it. The body
right.
accepts the protein to begin with because it's used to these proteins, but suddenly it realizes that there's other bits attached to the protein and we're having an allergic reaction, So anaphylactic shock, the extreme is death for some people from
Yes,
just eating wheat. And the same with peanuts. Indonesians, Chinese, they haven't got, there's no thing in China of people dying from peanut allergies, but when they export them to Europe after spraying them with antifungals, we're all
right.
allergic to peanuts. So again, it's the chemicals attaching to the proteins that we ingest, and
Yeah,
that causes an inflammatory system as well as eating loads of sugar, far too much omega-6. Everything is out of balance with the Western diet and the lifestyle of the Western world as
yeah.
well.
So what's your view? What's your view on meat? Just a little bit of meat is fine, sort of thing, or do you go into
Yeah.
more detail on that?
Well, I'm a vegetarian, but yeah, I'm quite anti-veganism and I'm quite anti-carnivorism, obviously, as
Right.
well. But we're omnivores, and I think if you can afford a bit of good meat, or just have it as a treat. When we were growing up, I loved meat when I was, young man and teenager, but I certainly had chicken maybe once a month and other meat once a week. Other times we're having bean casseroles and stuff like that. So it's become so affordable and so cheap. It's incredible to think that a life of a chicken is like £3 or £4.
I know.
So yeah,
I
I'm
know.
not sure whether that should be eaten every day. Again, there's lots of chemicals involved in there, and you're getting
I
in
know.
more inflammatory foods.
Yeah.
So good meat and less often, it is a treat. And I like having occasional fish, and yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, all food, everything, but not too much of
Yeah.
anything really. So yeah, so I have no problem with meat, but I do have problems with the meat industry. Obviously,
Oh, you'll see. Me too.
it's
Yeah.
absolutely barbaric. Yeah.
I know. I mean, it's just absurd. I
But
find it
it's
odd.
no worse than the agriculture. The
I
whole
find
business
it
is terrible for agriculture.
odd in this nation of because the British are notoriously soppy about animals, but yet turn a blind eye to the horrific things going on in factory farming, which just seems like how can you hold both views?
Yeah. Oh, it's incredible. If you look at gelatin and where gelatin comes from and things like that. I mean, yeah, horse hoof, it definitely
Mm.
coming from all things. You don't know what's going in it in Europe. And if you ever went near a gelatin factory, oh my goodness gracious me, it's worse than a plastic factory, the smells
Mm.
and things. And that's going into our food as a, totally legal food additive. And there's many worse things that are coming out of animal products that go into food as well. So
Yeah, I know.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the food chain and the food chain is definitely compromised, from the soil upwards. So it's very, very difficult. Even if you're eating organic food, Tesco's organic food isn't necessarily mineralized food, although it will be organic. So you're better off sometimes eating non-organic food from a mineralized farm that probably isn't even using
Well, yeah,
pesticides.
I know. I mean, our local farm raises its cows, and they don't have any barns, so they basically you can see them eating the grass, etc., etc. They're not organic, but I'd much prefer to have a sausage from one of those than I would like some so-called organic. I mean, because the Netherlands is notorious for raising organic meat in giant warehouses and all sorts. It's because they're sort of
Yeah,
world
yeah.
leaders in industrialized farming, which is why they have all these nitrate problems. And I mean, it's something extraordinary. They have more certain animal. I mean, it's because it's a tiny place, but they have like enormous amount of food that place generates, which is
Yeah,
suspicious.
yeah.
Hell.
I worked in a tomato farm actually when I left university in Holland when we joined the EU, whatever, in 1990. I thought,
Hmm.
God, we can go and work in Holland. That'd be interesting. Oh my gosh, yeah, it was shocking how a tomato grows in a greenhouse.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't see Earth, put it that way.
Oh,
So yeah,
oh God,
yeah, so
right.
that certainly opened my eyes to what the modern food chain was,
So there wasn't a lot
and
of,
certainly Holland.
not a lot of mineralization going on there then.
No, no, of course not. No, just enough to live, basically. With some phosphorus, magnesium, and potassium, maybe, and that'd be it. NPK, isn't it? I think NPK fertilizer. That's all we're getting in plants, basically. Just those three things, and
Yeah.
that is it. There's zero mineralization in soils, and that is definitely the root of our problems.
Yeah, tell a bit more about that because I think that's one particularly interesting part of your work is this mineralization thing because it's something that's often, well, in the books I've read, it's very seldom touched on in such detail. So just go a bit more
Mm.
about what we're missing out from the soil, etc.
Well, we're missing out on all of the minerals, and we're also missing out on all the bacterial elements as well and things. I mean, what I like to do is I draw an analogy between the human gut and the soil, because
Right,
both things are totally dependent upon a bacterial biome that breaks down other substances. So, our stomach creates all the vitamins, most of the vitamins, and it deals with the minerals. It's got nothing to do with the brain. It's all to do with the bacterial content of the stomach. And
right.
that has been there. So we don't understand that much. Well, when you transfer that onto our knowledge of the bacterial content of the soil, we just think we need to destroy and kill all bacteria. Things kill 99.9% of all bacteria, whereas in fact 99.9% of all bacteria we probably do require and we need, whereas there is only 0.1% of bacteria that could be potentially harmful to us. So it seems silly to kill everything just for the good things.
So
And in the soil, what's happened is we know that it's become demineralized. So many reports have come out there, and they say we've only got maybe up to one report was 20 harvests left. And that's incredibly positive because if you look at most monocultural fields, well, there wouldn't be one crop that could be grown in that soil if you didn't put down the NPK to start with at the beginning of the year.
right,
So all soil is actually devoid and is unsustainable.
it
So
is
it's
interesting
growing those white products. You need
because I
to.
mean I've noticed even this in my vegetable garden that that if I don't put proper composting down, fertilizer, whatever, I don't use chemicals at all. But even just not putting enough of something down, you really notice it. The plants
Yeah,
don't like. I mean, to be fair, the herbs are fine, and I often sort of because I often deliberately because they grow in the wild, so they don't necessarily need a lot. But for fruit, vegetables and stuff, they do need it and like it. But
mm,
yeah, it's just extraordinary how much if you're growing some particularly I find it with sort of gourds and potato, they do suck out of the soil everything, and it does have to be replaced, which of course would have happened in medieval times, all the sort of night soils, animal stuff, etc., which now doesn't
yep.
get put back on the field, does it? As far as I can make out.
Well, no, it's absolutely not. I mean, there's even a time when we put human manure, human
Hmm.
manure down as well, and everything,
Yeah,
and we had all the seaweeds, etc., will be
yeah,
collected
yeah.
from Worthing, from my area, and everything, and then they'd be sprayed as a liquid feed on all the fields. Because they're not doing that anymore, and a lot of the reason they're not doing it is because it's smelt. So a lot
Yeah.
of people were complaining about the smell because they were spraying the fields with the seaweed, which is quite stinky at the time. But
Oh yeah,
only for
no,
a
I
day or
mean
two does it
to
smell.
be
But because we've not got that, we're missing out the iodine. We haven't got iodine, we haven't got zinc in our diet anymore because we're not getting anything from the sea put on the soils.
interesting.
And that's the thyroid gland. Thyroid gland is one of the main things, the blueprint maker for the whole organism when we're a fetus to as we are today now. Whether
Right.
it's our moods and everything else is determined by the thyroid in here. Calcium absorption, everything comes from in here. Again, so it's here and the stomach. These are the most important things,
And
and minerals feed them. And we're not eating minerals; we're eating detrimental food, detrimental minerals, and we haven't got any of the good stuff that can even make the bad stuff better, as it were. So yeah, we're in a really difficult situation where the human organism is teetering out of balance and it's continuing down a path of unbalance, unsustainability. And what happens at the end of unsustainability? There must be a cliff. It must end in something. You can't be unsustainable
I
forever.
know it's
And our
it's the
culture is
worry.
unsustainable. Our economic system is unsustainable. And it's all unsustainable. So we need
Well,
to
we're
reel
seeing
it all
that
back,
now, yes.
become small, become local, you know, and then understand. You can't understand the soil if you don't even understand where food's coming from.
I
You
know.
know,
I mean, and I would say to everybody, because I used to live in London, didn't have a big garden, but like just start growing some herbs on your mantelpiece, on your windowsill. Just start growing things to get an idea of how things grow. And then, if you're lucky enough to get an allotment or have a garden big enough, start growing a few vegetables. It's interesting. I mean, I found this that because I only moved here like I don't know what 6 years, 7 years ago. But it actually it's looking after vegetables is can be quite a chore. I mean, it's very but it's a skill that you have to learn basically, and it's not as simple as chucking some seeds down. There's all sorts of things, and it's very fulfilling to be able to eat that. And it's well worth learning, which I would say. And however small, even if you've got a tiny flat, just plant a bean in a pot,
yeah,
just watch it grow.
exactly. It's why it's saying 7 plants as well,
Yeah,
because obviously I'm fortunate because I'm poor, but I live in the countryside.
yeah,
So what I am exposed to is very different to what people in Brighton or London
yeah.
are exposed to. But yeah, I think that is imperative. I think that's one of the messages I did want to get across in the book is that communion that we have with plants. It's just recognizing plants as an individual. And I made up another word. I love making up words, but obviously humans have a personality, and we like people's personality. Everything is individual. Plants therefore have a plantality, because they do have an
Yes, yes,
individuality
oh yeah,
in
yeah.
amongst species as well. Certain dandelions want to grow a little bit taller, a little bit bigger, a little bit, because they want to stand out amongst the crowd. They want to get picked. They want to get pollinated. All these things, and when you recognise the name of a plant and you can associate, so even just a nettle, if you're then seeing nettles and you're walking to work in London, you can think, yeah, and you say hello. And then as soon as you have that communion, you've actually opened a door to Mother Nature because you've accepted plants into your world. And a lot of people have that's never part of their world. They go to the park. Well, parks these days are just grass. Gardens, they're just grass. There's no plants there.
I
So no
know,
one's
I know.
understanding anything, let alone the fact there's no microbes in the soil and all those other aspects. We don't play outside, and yeah, we're living inside, and we're living a very different world to as I think humans have basically evolved, and we should be living. But there's
Yeah,
so much in the modern world that is incredible, and we can be utilizing so much that's been invented because we really are at a pinnacle of lots of knowledge. But I think we let that arrogance take us away sometimes and think that the white coats, the scientists, are actually doing the best for us when that's all been changed in the last 100 years to be making most money. And we
right.
need to lose that. And we need to take away from the nationalization and bring it back into local produce, small
Absolutely
businesses.
agreed. And for those of us who don't have the opportunity, is like having a side order of fried, or sautéed nettles every day on your plate going to be enough to give you enough trace minerals for the average person, or should we be all trying to eat far more than that?
No, I would say that just by picking the top of a nettle out and putting it in some hot water that's just boiled, but about 85 degrees, not boiling, you would then start that connection. You've
Right.
already accepted that you're putting that nettle in the drink because there could well be a health benefit. It flavors okay as well. If you don't like the flavor, a little bit honey or something in it. But yeah, and yes, absolutely. I've noticed that through the years. I've been doing I also do the powders. I don't know if you can see behind me.
Yep.
I
You
come
know,
with
I've taken them.
my
Wonderful thing.
powders, and I thank you. Yeah, and I realise a lot of people that have their diet's awful. They literally are in processed food all the time. But when they take the green Gaia, for instance, it's the first time in their life they've ever had a nettle, or they've had nettle root, or literally they say it was as if my body was I've won the game, because that's all we need to do. If we can get your body to tell you this is what you need, because that is the truth coming through, you need to listen. And that
Right.
doesn't happen very often, but when people accept that, then it's a faith thing. I've also realized being a herbalist, and I can see when a client comes to me, they're too ingrained in the system already that they probably wouldn't have any faith in a plant. But when someone has faith in a plant, they come to me. Amazingly, the powders and the herbalism works better
It's
because
interesting,
the
isn't it?
brain
Yes.
stops the stomach working. It is the devil quite often up here.
I can't
So
believe
yeah,
it.
Faith's important. Faith, because we have faith in the monetary system, but it's not a real system, you know. And we have faith in the medical system, which isn't a real system now, because people are getting sicker by taking the drugs, etc., for
Oh
longer.
no.
Doctors are rebelling as well, because doctors aren't taking the Hippocratic Oath, because they know that their patients, they're making them sicker by making them drug dependent and giving them side effects. Whereas the inflammation, the depression, never cured. All they're doing is taking anti-inflammatories for 5 years, getting fibromyalgia, getting other neurological conditions that they're taking more drugs for. And all they could have done at the beginning was actually have a nettle soup. Literally as simple as that. When they're diagnosed with any disease, even cancer, stop eating sugar, stop eating processed food, start eating raw food, and listen to your body. Really,
Yeah,
and the
a certain
dandelions and the
mindset.
nettles will be much better than any drug, literally much better than any. But for me to say that, it's against the law, because there's now cancer laws that have been put in place by the lobbyists again, that you can't say that dandelion root will help your cancer.
No,
So a
no.
doctor can't prescribe dandelion root because it gets struck off. Although now, have a look at the scientific information coming out from around the world proving that dandelion root is the best anti-carcinogen that there is available. It's all from the past. We knew this in the 17th century. This is what Parkinson was saying. This is what Culpeper was saying.
Yeah,
It's nothing new. It truly
yeah,
isn't,
yeah. I agree. I agree. And I think
Sorry, you've gone there.
inevitably we'll be forced back onto these traditional because, the society we live in presently is unsustainable. And so what can't is unsustainable won't go on forever, sort of thing. I don't know if it'll be in our lifetime, but so let's hope these people have a copy of your books on their bookshelf back, whenever this happens, or because, it's that's something you can do for yourself. And you're not reliant. It's a local thing you can do for yourself, you can do for your neighbors. And yeah. So, yeah. Carl, any last words? I think I'm going to tie it up there. So anything you'd like to say to the listeners before and viewers before we
Exactly
wrap
that.
it up?
It is a blueprint I could go on. I'm sorry that I feel that I'm a bit militant for a
No, no,
herbalist,
it's been
because
fascinating, and I can hear the
yeah,
passion there, and I think some really useful stuff as well. So I think this is
that's
going to
all
be
I have.
great.
Again, I think the one thing I want people to do, if you aren't already, is just to start having that communion with plants. Just realizing that the only thing that we all come from and we will go to is the earth, and
Yeah.
the earth provides everything. Mother Earth genuinely provides, whilst our culture divides. So
Yes.
yeah, I think when spring comes, go out there, pick some tops of some fresh nettle leaf, and start to experience, if you're not already, really. And of course, buy the book, really,
Of course.
because yeah, it's a fascinating book. I'm so proud of it, and yeah, if I die tomorrow, I'm more than happy to leave that for the world to read, because yeah, I could have done no better, and I love you for letting me put it out there as well.
Karl Elliot-Gough, thank you very much for talking to me today, and until next time.